after hill. Some theirs, some we made ours. The hard way. The bazooka. The 81mm mortar. Firepower and maneuver. An enemy shell. Duck. Where that guy is with the rifle is the front of the war. The 75 recoilless rifle. And a direct hit. Ammo up. The auto rifle. Comes strafing. And Marine air with rockets and napalm to burn them out. Another hill and another village. And the Marines move on up, carrying their homes on their backs.
But hills cost, and how they cost. And these are the boys who paid, in spite of all the gallant work of the hospital corpsmen.
And so into Sewell. Lost once, but taken again. Still the poor, hungry kids. South Korean recruits, raw. And then under a few weeks' training, not so raw.
Now look at this, and look at it, and look at it. That's what the Korean Republic is fighting for. Miles and miles and miles of homeless refugees set adrift by the Red Scourge. Whole families starving, fear-ridden, without hope beyond the United Nations. Shots for smallpox, typhus. And they don't understand. But they will. It was a big problem what to do with the orphan kids they picked up. They had to leave them somewhere before they reached the front. So they...
It's colder now. And how cold it gets in Korea. Brass monkey cold. And that's cold. Wet, too. Moving north into war's desolation. Hills. And more hills. Rivers. And more rivers. Rice paddies and more rice paddies. Going forward. General Chesty Puller, 4 times winner of the Navy Cross.
Put some more fire down on those people.
Hinges. With the infantry moving up under the fire curtain. Always moving up. To the power plant on Chosin Reservoir. Another hill. Always another hill. The orange cloth on that guy's back is an air marker to indicate the front lines to planes. Still. Sawtooth wind. 20 freezing degrees below. Makes a man wonder what he did with his last summer's pay, don't it? Now the prisoners come in. Prime-looking lot, aren't they? We searched them. We smashed their weapons. We questioned them. This young kid says they killed his mother and father and gave him a gun. That's all he knows about the war. But these wise mugs were tough. They clammed up, they wouldn't sing. Hey, 3 on a match.
And then it happened. You remember Valley Forge? Well, look at it again. Snow, ice, wind. And all the time we were there, 10 enemy divisions held us boxed in, surrounded, short in all supply. The carrier planes had to break deck ice to get off and support. Winter decisions had to be made in Tokyo, and an old soldier made them. Pearl Harbor. Admiral Radford's headquarters. The decisions are passed to the Navy for action. Back to Tokyo again. Vice Admiral Turner Joy, Commander Naval Forces Far East.
The situation in Korea is so critical that we in the Navy must give the 8th Army the maximum practical support. I direct that the commander of the 7th Fleet, the commander of Carrier Division 15, the Fleet Marine Air Wing, and the commander of United Nations Blockading and Escort Force be directed to provide the maximum possible air gunfire support. Make it move.
Meanwhile, the Air Force under Lieutenant General Stratemeyer is alerted. This order caught Rear Admiral Eddie Ewan's Task Force 77 refueling at sea, right in the middle of a winter storm. We think the Admiral is praying for good weather. Then the weather broke, and USS Missouri, the mighty Mo, comes in. Vice Admiral Arthur Strubel's 7th Fleet joins the battle. Carriers stand by and the pilots are briefed. Napalm, that is. And the planes are launched to support the Marines at the front. That helicopter in the background is ditch patrol. Then somebody ditches. And he gets him. Nice wet work.
Back at the reservoir, wounds and frostbite take their toll. And the casualties go out by plane. Then the heartbreaking withdrawal order comes. Burn everything and bug out. Not before the payoff. And not leaving the dead either. 1st Marine Air Wing pilots slammed their rockets right into those dug-in commies. Hit on a bridge. Back to the 38th parallel, back under our own guns. And then we're out, and far enough back to hear the thunder of the mighty Mo. Long, the Mo pounded the beach. So that's how the faces got tired. Hill after hill.
And then we go back again. The long, weary shuttle begins once more.
6 years later, in the Korean War, jet fighters did clash in air combat. Many of the American pilots were veterans of World War II, well-trained and battle-hardened. Their principal weapon was the newly introduced F-86 Sabre. In it, they achieved almost undisputed dominance of the skies over Korea. By the end of the war, Sabres had claimed nearly 800 enemy aircraft destroyed for the loss of 78 of their own.
The transition from piston-driven, propeller-driven aircraft to jet-propelled aircraft was not as dramatic a change as one might imagine. Flying at altitude to conserve fuel was a change. The speeds weren't all that violent, because speed is relative. If he's going 600, you're going 600, what's the difference? Zero. I was in the first fighter group that had the first 35 production models of the F-86A-1. We wrecked over 20 of them. It wasn't all our fault. They just weren't built well. There was a new step forward. Pieces kept flying off. Engines quit. Tails would go fluttering. It was really a wild ride. It was very seldom that you took off without landing under emergency conditions.
The opposition was principally the Chinese with some Soviet volunteers. The communist pilots were no match in skill and experience for their American and Allied opponents, but their aircraft, the Soviet-built MiG-15, was a revelation. An excellent fighter, powered, ironically, by an engine based on the Rolls-Royce design. It outperformed all the American fighters except the Sabre, and in some features was superior to that as well. Its appearance sent a shock wave through the West. The scene was set for history's first jet fighter combats.
We took the 4th group over first, which were F-86s out of Langley Air Force Base, Virginia. So we finally worked out, but we flew under very difficult conditions.
The 86 was a good dogfight machine. It was like a P-51, but it was much faster. Good visibility, rugged, reliable. The later models didn't fly apart. The time span between the two wars was not great enough for us to have lost the knowledge that had been gained.
The MiG pilots make the same mistakes that the Germans used to make, and that is head for the deck. And we could out-accelerate them in the F-86s. But the MiG-15 could out-climb the F-86. There was a lot of airplanes. At first, you stand back and shoot, and you could knock them down. The MiG was a very tough airplane. See, the metals had gotten stronger because the speeds of the airplanes had increased. So then they finally got some heavier guns in the 86s and started getting the victories.
He did. On October 20th, 1944, a powerful American invasion force struck at Leyte. In the vanguard rode the general, determined to make good on a promise he had given the Filipinos. And as he plunged knee-deep into the surf and waded ashore, it heralded the last gasps of the Japanese war machine. Thrust of his tension, President Truman made a special trip to Wake Island. Here, after an 8,000-mile flight, the president met General MacArthur for the first time. Plans for the future Korean campaigns were discussed in a simple radio shack, and far-reaching decisions were obtained. Once more, harmony reigned over the United Nations team, but the question was, for how long? Then disaster suddenly struck. An estimated 250,000 Red Chinese soldiers attacked the Allied lines. The United Nations troops were forced to retreat. Once more, North Korea was overrun by the communists. In the ensuing months, the fighting settled down to a potential stalemate. On April 5th, 1951, chafing under the restrictions that had been placed on his military operations, General MacArthur wrote a letter to Representative Martin, applauding the congressman's demand for use of Chiang Kai-shek's troops to open a second front against the communists. President Truman took issue with the letter.
I believe that we must try to limit the war to Korea for these vital reasons: to make sure that the precious lives of our fighting men are not wasted, to see that the security of our country and the free world is not needlessly jeopardized, and to prevent a third world war. A number of events have made it evident that General MacArthur did not agree with that policy. I have therefore considered it essential to relieve General MacArthur so that there would be no doubt or confusion as to the real purpose and aim of our policy.
After an absence of 14 years, General MacArthur returns to the United States and lands at San Francisco amidst deafening cheers. The general has come home to tell his side of the story. On hand to extend California's sunniest welcome to a great war hero is Governor Warren. Mrs. MacArthur and the general's 13-year-old son, Arthur, share the limelight in a throng which all but overwhelms the general in its enthusiasm. 2 days later in Washington, a joint meeting of the two houses of Congress is assembled to hear General MacArthur state his position on Far Eastern policy. The general stresses 4 major points as essential in the present situation. 1, permission to bomb Manchurian bases. 2, a blockade of the China coast. 3, vigorous support of Chiang Kai-shek's troops in an attack on the China mainland. And 4th, the retention of Formosa. He ends with a touching valedictory.
I now close my military career and just fade away. An old soldier who tried to do his duty as God gave him the light to see that duty. Goodbye.
And then it is New York's turn to give a 5-star welcome to a 5-star hero. The world's greatest city says, "Welcome home, Mac," with the greatest demonstration in its history. A veritable blizzard of confetti blankets the estimated 7.5 million people who have turned out to pay homage to the general. East side, west side, all around the big town, they form solid walls of spectators. City Hall Square is jammed as Mayor Impellitteri presents a medal to the general in token of New York's affection and esteem. Soldier, general, leader of the American Armed Forces in 2 generations of war, Douglas MacArthur has earned his place in America's history. As for the result of President Truman's momentous decision and what it will mean to the American people, only time will tell.